in 3, in 2, in 1. And get your conspiracy theories ready, everyone, because we're here with FrameCast number 42, and we have a special guest on named Xayl.
Hello. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you, Drew?
Good.
How are you today?
Do with more sleep. My sleep pattern's just so screwed right now.
Is that because of work, or is that because of, like, the staying at home thing?
It's this the working from home thing. It's like my brain just can't comprehend, like, I am
have no
home.
boundaries.
Yeah, like, I'm home all the time. Therefore, stay up till 3 in the morning. Brain, please stop doing this.
How are you
drug
dealing?
yourself.
How are you dealing, Xayl, with staying
I'm
home?
alright. I'm fine. It's pretty much standard fare. I find like it's more other people being in the house than me being at home that I'm struggling with. It's just when you spend too much time around your family, it's just a little too much exposure. You like to retreat to the cave for a little bit, but unfortunately that's not super possible because there's people buzzing around the fucking house all the time. But
yeah, I feel you there, dude. It's like, on the one hand, you may feel like alone because like you can't go out if you wanted to, but at the same time, you're never really alone because there's always someone in the room next to you or within like.
Jesus is here for you. You're never really alone.
Hey, we can now start referencing the latest Rick and Morty. Oh boy, Jesus.
I haven't seen it. No, don't.
Whoa. That's not the latest
There's
one.
one that came out
Is
yesterday.
there a new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sunday night.
Episode 7 is
Sunday
out?
night. That's such a weird airing time.
It is.
Yeah,
but this entire season has been like really weird. Just like the start of the episode has been really weird. So why did I bring up conspiracy theories? Because last Sunday week sale on right here was on the 5th of December. So 5/12. And now it's the 12th of May. So it's 12/5 and we're having them on again. We totally thought of that. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about how will live services end on consoles. So we briefly touched on this topic last week while we were browsing through our various topics that we got on. And basically, I think this is something which I have not really considered with like this new next upcoming generation of consoles. And I think it's a really interesting point to take a look into. So what do I mean with this? Well, we're facing a new generation of consoles, the PlayStation 5, whatever the Xbox calls its thing. And we're going to go there, which basically means that, like, if you have a PlayStation 4 right now or an Xbox One, basically what you're going to have is that you're going to have a couple more games that are coming out, and then everything will move over to the next console, and then, like, this console generation will just be deserted, which is pretty much standard practice as has been for, like, years, except for, like, the Wii, where they're still making games for it right now, which is kind of weird. Anyway.
Are they? What?
Yes, they are. There's like this dance game, something or so, that was like last E3. They made a dancing game for the Wii.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. They're still releasing games for the Wii. 2020.
News to me. I had no idea.
But the Wii aside, what's interesting this time with like us switching like from the next console generation is that the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One X or the One S or the Xbox One, whatever you want to call the thing. Xbox is so weird with its names. Anyway, this console generation.
Series X, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, they have so many. And like how you're calling the first Xbox One, and then you have the Xbox One again. It's so confusing. Anyway,
No, isn't it the Xbox One XX1, the Xbox One X10 X1, and just keep on putting more X's on it.
Yeah, and then we're going to do a 360 again or something. I would have loved if they called this, like, this current generation, like the Xbox 720 or something. That would have been great. And just continue on.
I think I would have preferred the Xbox Apple.
Hell yeah, dude.
And then banana. Then cherry.
No,
dude,
an Xbox, like an Xbox Apple, where you don't have any ports on the Xbox itself. So every time that, like, your controller battery dies, you literally just have to throw away the controller and buy a new one.
I wouldn't put that part behind.
Planned obsolescence. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's pretty gross.
Yeah. Anyway, so what we saw with this generation of consoles is the introduction of live services with games like Destiny, like Warframe, like Fortnite, like many live service games where you can, most of the time, even free to play, get into this game and then just like start breaking up the hours, progressing these games. And like these games are characterized, but they're always updated and you can continue to go along with the update cycle. Now, what's going to happen to them? when like the new console generation hits. Are they going to move over to the new generation? Yes or no? And if they are, what will happen to like the games on the old generation? So, first of all, do you guys feel that like Warframe, Destiny, whatever, Fortnite is going to move over to the new generation, or are they just going to stick on this one platform that they're on right now?
We
Oh,
know
they'll
that
move. Of course they move.
Warframe's already announced that they're going to support the new generation.
Mhm.
Destiny did as well. I think fairly recently said there was reference because it was like, you know, with Warframe it's always been one game, whereas I think people had the kind of, you know, the expectation that Destiny would have like, oh, Destiny 3 on the next platform or whatever. But they, for a while now, have said like, oh, we just want to keep building on one game. We just want to keep building on one game, which I suppose is going to come into the problems with that of you know, leaving behind a an old build. Because where
Yeah.
do you cut it off?
Yeah, that's something which I'm really curious about. Because what we're seeing, like what we can expect, is that all these live services will just move on to the next generation, and I think that for a certain amount of time they will still support like the games on like the old generations. But like the great thing about new hardware is that you can do new things, and it'd be stupid if you're a developer to not use the capabilities of the new system. And if you start using them, then you cannot ship new updates to like the old consoles anymore. So at a certain point, they're not going to be able to support them anymore. And what then? Like, are you going to have to be forced to like buy a brand new couple $100 console to continue to play your free to play game? And will you still have access to it?
It's got to be like a grace period, really, isn't there? But like ultimately, you do have to just give up on the old platforms. That's just how it works. It's sort of the problem with it being, you know, the platforms that consoles are is that they are kind of segmented, and you can't. A lot of the time, there isn't backwards compatibility. Whereas, like with a PC, you can just have the same PC theoretically. I mean, I'm sure you know it's like the broom handle thing. You constantly switch stuff out, but it's still something it's still built for the same architecture theoretically until it gets to like, you know, games that can't run on Windows 10 or whatever, or you know, things like that. Like fucking Fallout 3, which is just a nightmare to get working on anything anymore. But I don't know.
Run a virtual machine. Go ahead, sure.
I think that like part of the problem is it comes down to publishers and manufacturers. So, I mean, we're seeing more and more games these days. They come out and they're buggy as hell, they're glitchy as hell. They're not built properly. They're weirdly ported over. And then there's the manufacturers of consoles, and it's in their best interest to force the players to migrate to the new platform. I don't really think that it's like Bungie or oh god, what's the name of the no, is it Respawn Entertainment, the makers of Jedi Fallen Order?
Yes, Respawn did Titanfall, right?
Yes, and
yeah, I think it's
is it Capcom who directly made Monster Hunter World?
Yes, yeah.
So I don't really think that it's any of these three developers, as an example, that would say, right, oh, we're no longer supporting the Xbox One. We're now only supporting the
new
Series
Xbox
X?
thing.
Yeah, why am I even bothering trying to name it? Like, the name's garbage. Anyway,
I don't know if they actually is that even the official name, the Series X.
I think it is. I think it's called the Series X, but right now they have the Xbox One X, and that comes from the Xbox. It's so confusing. Like, why? Like, if you were gonna go with Xbox One,
go with a
just
number.
call it Xbox 2.
I'll stick with PlayStation. That's the safer bet.
PlayStation
right?
5. Let's go with that.
Yeah, so they'll stop supporting the PlayStation 4. They'll only support the PlayStation 5. I think that is something that will be effectively strong-armed in, because we know from experience with Warframe the fact that the patches have to go into certification, which I'm assuming is a costly process. They're not just going to go, you know, oh, you can cert your stuff for free. Otherwise, Warframe would do it a hell of a lot more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just going to be a case of, the manufacturers are going to say, "Oh yeah, we're upping the cost of the certification," right? And they're just going to strong arm the developers into the path that they want.
Yeah, so you think it's going to be like a decision pretty much made from not necessarily by the developers, but it's basically like the Sony and Microsoft coming around and saying, well, wouldn't be smart to do that anymore. Please don't do it anymore. No, you can't do it anymore. So screw you.
Yeah.
You still want to develop for this.
It's not like they don't make money off of selling the old consoles, though. So it doesn't hurt them
Well,
as such.
like, the thing is, like, as long as they still sell the old consoles, like, they're going to make money of it, but like they're going to stop doing that at some point because it won't be smart to run like 2 manufacturing lines of like an old console, which is going to be like phased out eventually. So like for a while maybe, but like it's going to be phased out eventually. We're going to see a time when they stop producing them and then they won't make money out of selling them anymore.
I completely agree. I think one of the biggest factors is like, God, how do I say this? It's everyone wants to make money, and I wouldn't be surprised if. Okay, better way of looking at this. I remember seeing PlayStation 4 at EGX back in October 2013, and they had this special isolated booth that you had to queue like 3 hours for. It was ridiculous. And in order to see Warframe, you had to then queue a second time into the 18s only area, right? Which luckily we got to skip. But they try really hard to push this whole, we've got the big exclusive titles, we've got the huge, monolithic things. Like, every platform that comes out, there's always a huge title that goes with it. Honestly, I think Warframe was not intended to be there as a launch title for the PlayStation 4. I think the launch title for the PlayStation 4 was massively held back because of whatever reasons, and they needed to pimp something. And Warframe was just able to just pick up the slack.
Was that really the thing they took to the booth, like as their main attraction? That can't be right.
It was it was one of them. Right,
really?
Yeah, like there was, I think there was a version of Killing Floor. No, not Killing Floor. Killzone. Right.
I was gonna say like Killing Floor. Like what? Like,
yeah, no,
Killzone. I get because that's sort of a.
But like that had
staple.
like I've not heard anything of that franchise since that game at all. There was one which was this weird block game, like wooden gnome golem thing that would sort of like Katamari Damacy, just run along into things, pick up more blocks. There was a football game, and like that was about it. There was nothing there.
Well, like most of the times, like this time where you're moving on from one console to the next is interesting because like you're still gonna have titles that are coming out and they're suited for both consoles, and then like it's always a bit weird. That being said, I don't necessarily think like it's a big problem or like in general that we're moving on from generations or whatever happens in between, because like everything is kind of built on growth, and like technology grows better and better, and like if you want to like up the game as a console, like it would be weird if you had like the PS4 Pro, which like was a little bit better, but like you could still like, if they didn't move on a generation, at a certain point you're gonna have like the very first edition of that generation is gonna not be able to run like whatever the last version of it runs. So like console generations, I'm quite fine with. However, the problem that I'm a bit worried about that I see right now when it comes to live service games is that like most of them are free. Some of them aren't, like Division 2, but most of them are free. Some of them aren't, like Anthem. I don't know why Anthem isn't free yet. Anyway, however, if I go back to my PlayStation 3, there are many, many games which used to be big blockbuster games like Call of Duties, which all had online services. And right now, there's far fewer people on there because everyone's moved on, but you can still play these games. You can still play the online multiplayer element of it, or you can play the solo campaign of it. However, I have never been able to play an older version of Warframe. I've never been able to play an older version of Destiny. And I don't think you can play an older version of Anthem and Division 2. So, as far as I can see, if there is no option for playing an older build on like the old console, like you're not even gonna be like, oh, I am no longer up to date with everything, or like I'm no longer on like the very much populated servers. It's like you're just gonna have no game. You're literally gonna have no game there because it's no longer being supported. You got nothing. And that strikes me as like worrisome, especially if you've been a player that's like dumped money into this thing or dumped a lot of time into this thing. That like if you want to continue to have the thing that you worked at or play the game which you like you're gonna have to buy a new console. Otherwise, you just can't play that. And I don't think that's been ever before in like games history has been the case where like you literally could not play a game anymore because like the console generation moved on.
I don't think there's literally anything on like to that effect that happened with, I guess, PS3 to PS4 or Xbox 360 to.
Yeah, there was. Like,
can you think
all of the Xbox Live Arcade games? Like when you migrated from Xbox 360 to Xbox One, you lost them all.
Couldn't you argue that that's just sort of the nature of how consoles have always been though? Because it's just you end up.
No. As in, like you could not physically play them anymore, even if you still had your 360. Right?
Oh.
You could not play those games because your account has been updated to be that of an
That's
Xbox
weird.
One. Yeah, it really fucked me off. I didn't.
They never
realize
go back and fix that, or is it just because
I don't know. Like
they're not things that they had servers for, and they didn't want to support them anymore.
I just basically went, you know what? Fuck you, Microsoft. Going back to PC full time. That was it really. I mean, my PC can fucking handle most. Well, actually, now my PC can fucking handle anything. But apart from Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Bogshite,
and fast internet.
I mean, that's not the PC's fault.
No. The what's it called? Jedi Fallen Order. It's glitchy as hell. Like I've put in for a refund, and I'm still waiting to hear back for it because the game is just unplayable. And it's
really,
it came out and like the game would just freeze. I've actually got footage of this. The game would just freeze. My PC is perfectly fine. Game's completely frozen. Or every cutscene, the audio and the footage completely falls out of sync every damn time. It was so infuriating. You just can't play it. And that game came out October, November last year.
Was it really that long ago?
Yeah, it still hasn't been fixed. And anyway, what was my point apart from this? Yeah, random tangent. Oh, so we have seen this before. Mm-hmm. The biggest hint at how a game developer would handle this, I think, is Bungie with Destiny 1. Because the last update was
Taken King,
which was not available on the 360 because the 360 couldn't handle the update. So it stopped. So I don't know if support for if you could continue to play Destiny 2 pre-Taken King, or if it's like, nope, fuck you all. We
Destiny 1
Xbox One or not.
Presumably.
Yeah, Destiny 1.
Yeah. I was gonna say because I feel Bungie's a weird one because you say we treat it as like a live service, but they've only really gone into that with Destiny 2. Like the intention originally was to do a third sequel, or like not a third sequel, a second sequel, I guess. But the fact that like they've definitely pulled away from that idea and now they've got it. But it's a weird question because months before all of this stuff recently about like the game, having we've got plans up to year 7 or whatever of Destiny 2.
Yeah.
And I guess the Destiny franchise, I think it does include. Oh, maybe no. I think it is actually just Destiny 2. They had like a board in one of the vidocs they did. But the fact that the game is kind of creaking under its own weight at this point, like realistically, you do have to upgrade it eventually. Like, and that means ditching the platform that can't support that. Which it sucks if you are somebody who can't necessarily afford to keep up with the tech, but unfortunately, I think, that's not really the main priority. Like accessibility isn't always the main thing that developers, even if it isn't, as you say, like even if it's more like the console makers kind of pushing them in a certain direction. I still don't believe that they keep producing it for. It's like I seriously doubt, in like a couple of years they'll still be doing Warframe updates for PS4 and Xbox One.
Well, like
I'd be very surprised.
I'm not worried that they're gonna be doing like updates on there. It's like it's fine. Like things move on. So like if you wanna like use the latest capabilities of the latest hardware, you're gonna have to move on there. The thing that I'm kind of worried about is that like you're gonna be left with nothing at all, because as far as I've seen, well, with the live services like Destiny or Warframe, like you cannot go back to previous updates. You cannot play previous updates. So are they gonna like make an exception? Like, do you think it's likely that they're gonna like say like, okay, this is our build that we're gonna stick with
Warframe
forever.
Legacy.
Yeah, that we're gonna stick with forever. That we're gonna be able to play. That you're gonna be able to play on the consoles, because like at the same time, it's like they're gonna have to like run these servers as well. Like they're gonna keep up. They're gonna have to keep up the servers for like this separate build on like PS4 and Xbox One, and like how long are they gonna maintain that?
It's probably like case by case, isn't it? Like some developers will probably go out of their way for it, but then others will probably just be like, you snooze, you lose. Like, there it goes. All that progress went. If you can't keep up with this, then that's it. But I mean, that sucks from a consumer point of view. If you want to go back and play the original version. But I mean, look, like this is maybe not the best sort of analogy for it, but like, look at Classic for WoW. I mean, obviously that's not like a change of platform. That is like the game exists for that. It took years to get that out, like to get like Blizzard on board with making that, and people wanted it for ages. I'd be surprised if smaller companies are willing to put that kind of effort into maintaining their older games, just because. I mean, I guess if you get it stable in like a one build that's never going to change, that's fine. But I don't know. I feel like the whole point of playing a game as a service is that you get to keep sort of carrying on. You don't. I don't know. I don't see the point of like playing on a platform that's outdated at that point. But
I think I think you raise a really valid point with World of Warcraft, but I do think that there is a difference between consoles and PC, because PC, it's an independent platform. Like, everyone, not everyone, but nearly everyone's PCs are going to be different, right? Like I've got a Ryzen 9. What processor have you got?
Oh, God knows. I can't remember.
Yeah, exactly. And like the big thing is, does the operating system support the hardware? That's effectively our manufacturer, the operating system. As long as the operating system supports the hardware, then the game will support the operating system. And likewise, as long as the game is able to support the operating system, because the operating system is still being supported by the manufacturer. I mean, look how long it's taken them to stop supporting Windows 7, right? If I go and have a look at World of Warcraft's minimum specs, I still reckon it would say Windows 7, and I would not be surprised if it like to Windows P. That's the sort of company Blizzard are. But I think less reputable developers, developers that care less for the actual game and more for publishers. Let's say it's the publishers that twist the arm here. Like less reputable publishers, they're like, nah, it needs to be. Oh, it needs just little effort. Oh, yeah, shiny shit. Oh, give us some money.
What I think that the difference is when it comes to PC and consoles is not necessarily like right now you're seeing so many games that are coming out where like low specs are like really like their selling point. Like you don't need anything for this. Like you can run this on a toaster. But like the difference that I feel when it comes to PC is that like you're only gonna have to support like the PC servers. You're only gonna have to support the PC version. So if someone wants to like download Warframe on their like shitty ass laptop, it's like they can do that. If they can then run it and it doesn't run, well, like yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Then they can't run it. But like the thing is that like it's only like one thing, and they can just like keep up the servers for like this one thing. However, when it comes to like PS4 and PS5, like those are going to be two separate things. I don't think there's going to be like overlap between like, oh, I can play with PlayStation, like the servers for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 are exactly the same, because like there's that, like those are more distinct different things, just like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are two distinct different
But
things.
If the manufacturer, Sony, actually put the effort in so that you could, as a PlayStation 4 player, still work on the same server technology as the PlayStation 5 players, right? That would be a huge selling point, right? Oh, what's that, Sony players? Oh, PlayStation players? Do you still want to play with your friends? Well, you can. You know, like it's so much more inciting than bloody playing with, what's the name of the damn the we were talking about this last week, where Microsoft tried with the Xbox One to force you to register your physical copies of the game. You know, they are like Microsoft are up to shady shit like nearly all the time. Conspiracy theory. You know, Microsoft are up to shady shit like so often, and when it comes to Sony, I have more faith in, and
Well,
if Sony does, well, no, I do.
Do you remember like the Fortnite or Dauntless thing, where it was like they wanted to like bring in crossplay, which I actually also want to bring up as a point. Like, do you think that there might be a bigger chance for this happening now that like crossplay between platforms is an option right now, because we see that with different games. However, like
crossplay or cross save.
Crossplay between on Fortnite, I think, and on Dauntless is available between PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC, or maybe not Switch. But
I think Dauntless. I think Dauntless is everything. I'm fairly certain.
So like basically like that was pretty hard fought for. I think like a year or 2 years ago. And basically everyone was on board except Sony, because Sony kept saying like the only pure way of playing is on Sony consoles, and if you do not want to have the purest, like we cannot have our pure Sony multiplayer gameplay be tainted by other platforms, so we will not allow crossplay. And then like they came around and said ultimately, it's fine.
Such a stupid idea. It's literally just to drive. It's to force people into that kind of factional mindset for buying consoles.
There is a mindset. There is a valid mindset behind it, though. Is that if someone does something on, so say I'm a PC player, right? And then I start spamming ASCII dicks in chat, right? The Xbox, Nintendo, and PS4 can't touch me in the slightest, right? The only company that can do anything is Dauntless themselves, and they can just ban me. I still have my PC. I can still connect to the internet. I can still play other games, right? But with those three platforms, they're a lot more serious, and they would ban you from being able to play anything online.
Would they? Is that
well? They have done that sort of thing before, where someone does something bad and they'll just like, oh well, you can't play games online. I think there was a lot of like cheating with fighting games and things with the Xbox 360 era. Like they're just like, well, no, you just can't play games online.
I do think that's one of the biggest arguments when it comes to like console players that don't want crossplay with PC people, is because like last week we talked about like that rank 0 like kernel access Valorant anti-cheat system that they put on PC, because PC tends to be a little bit more hackable and a little bit more cheatable, and at the same time they also have like mouse and keyboard, whatever you may think, like for most people does have some sort of advantage, because they have
empirically
more
better for like you just because of the way you kind of, I guess it's just like the full arm movement and stuff. It's a lot more like precise, but there are people who will probably outdo you or me or anybody on PC with a controller, but like I imagine the two categories, console is one end and then there's an overlap in the middle. But
I can understand that some people might be like, hey, I don't want to crossplay with PC. I think Sea of Thieves is a game that I've been playing a lot lately, and they have this option.
Me too.
Oh, you too.
Yeah,
Dude.
I fucking love it. It's great.
It is really, really awesome. I really love the
Mm.
like teaming up on like the ship and then treasure hunting and going out and doing all the tasks. Anyway, this game like has crossplay between Xbox One and PC, and like if you're on the Xbox, you can choose whether you want to like crossplay with PC or not crossplay with PC, and I think that's a pretty cool option.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I guess.
I think
Yeah.
I think that sort of thing is a good solution for any of the potential vulnerabilities to players. I swear it was Sony were like really hesitant to do crossplay with Minecraft. I don't even know if it's there, explicitly because they could not control the language of anyone that was not a PlayStation 4 player. Like they couldn't like prevent profanity or anything like that. They couldn't guarantee it.
Yeah. I have to say, when it comes to Minecraft though, like that's a game that kind of fascinates me with like the builds idea. It's like that game, like you pay $20 initially, and you will just continue to receive new updates all the time. Probably because they got fuckloads of money. But like you can also go back to previous builds. Like you can literally go into the launcher, then go back to like every build that's released, and then you can like run your Minecraft on that build, because like there's many servers that only work with like a certain build of Minecraft because like they take a lot of time to like work on. But like I think that Minecraft in that regard is like really, really cool, and like I wouldn't worry if I have Minecraft on like PS4 or Xbox One, and like we're gonna go to the new generation, and oh my god, now like we can't do Minecraft on like the newest updated Minecraft on like the PS5 anymore. If I bought it on the PS4, I can still like play all the builds that I want to. I think. I'm not quite sure.
I don't know about that. I know PC allows you to swap builds, but I don't know about console. I would have thought console was always up to date. But
It's
to be
sort of
fair, go on.
Sorry, go. Yeah, you go.
To be fair, though, Microsoft would still pump truck tons of money into Minecraft anyway, because it's their easiest way to get into the minds of younger generations, right? You know, before people get to like adults and like teenagers because of that, no one, like kids wouldn't hear about Microsoft. They wouldn't know what Microsoft was. But just getting into the minds of the kids, like, so they are aware of them for the future. And I trust Microsoft. They made Minecraft.
Well, the one thing I knew Microsoft from when I grew up as a kid was the computer. I was literally Windows.
Yeah, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Windows and Office. I think every kid, unless you have an Apple family, then I'm sorry that your parents.
Then you need to be culled.
Smooth.
Your parents could be buying you better birthday presents and Christmas gifts. Instead, they decided to spend it on inferior hardware. I'm so sorry.
Yep. Know that feeling.
I could say the same thing for people that don't build their own PCs.
But that's like a not lack of confidence kind of thing, isn't it? As opposed to just like, oh, it's simpler and they all just work together. They always just work. It's like until they don't, and then you can't fix them.
Yeah.
I was going to say something about. It was that Minecraft is like, it's hardly pushing the boundaries, is it? That's sort of the thing with, the fact that it's. I don't know if you can play the older builds on console, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's a bit more possible than like doing it on Warframe or Destiny or whatever, because they're very different settings, and like it's just a purely creative game for the most part, with like a bit of the survival and stuff like that and all that, but it's hardly like the most demanding game, so you could theoretically have it be supported for both platforms at the same time.
Have you played it with RTX on?
No, I haven't actually.
No, so like, I kind of agree on the argument that you make when it comes to like, hey, it's a bit of a different game, because one thing that Minecraft really has is that like, hey, you have your own servers. At least on PC, I haven't played Minecraft on consoles, but at least on PC, you have your own servers. So, like, if you want to run a Minecraft 1.1 version of a server, like you can run that because it's your server. You do it. Like Minecraft don't have to like run their servers at a general point like other games have, like Warframe. Like Warframe does peer-to-peer, but still they need servers to like supply that. So like that isn't the function they have. However, when it comes to like, well, the Minecraft is less demanding. Right now it is, yes. However, over time, that's not really going to make a difference, because like Minecraft is most likely going to like increase. maybe at a far lower rate than like whatever Warframe or Destiny is running at. But at a certain point, most likely Minecraft will get to a point where even PlayStation 4 won't be able to handle it anymore. And maybe that's like 25 years in the future, maybe that's 50 years into the future, who knows? But I think that there will come a point. So like there is an obsolescence in it. That's going to happen with any piece of hardware.
But at that point, does it matter?
Like, well, the thing
in that time kind of time scale, where it's like 25 years. Like,
well, the thing is that like the thing that kind of matters or doesn't matter, like we don't like I don't know yet because like I haven't seen this before. Is that like things were always going to be obsolete. Like the current gen hardware was always going to be obsolete. However, if I wanted to play the games that I bought for that system, I could always go back and play it. So like my Nintendo 64 is completely like obsolete compared to like my PlayStation 4 Pro or my Nintendo Switch, but I can still go back and play the games that I bought for it. However, right now, if I were to buy like Division 2 or Anthem, I would already make a bad decision buying Anthem. But then like I wouldn't be able to go back and play these games anymore because hooray, the service doesn't support it anymore. So like I think that that's for me a little bit the thing. Like, hey, you know, I bought something, and now if I want to keep playing this thing that I bought, I'm gonna have to put down $500 or something, whatever the thing will be when it launches.
I mean, I assume it's just it's in the terms of service though these days. That sort of thing is, this game might not be supported forever. Is just always going to be part and parcel with that. And I feel like it's kind of difficult because I don't play on console, so I don't want to come down with the fucking, PC Master Race, whatever. But like, I feel like if you play on a console, you kind of have to accept you're paying for the convenience as opposed to like the control that you get over, or maybe not control, but you're paying for the fact that you have this one thing and it does the games, and then at some point you will move on to another version of this hardware. And I think that just sort of, as far as console goes, that's just you're kind of signing up for that. Like theoretically, I'd imagine, you're right, we haven't had this very much with like live service games being kind of left behind on a previous platform. I think it's just sort of the same as usual with like, I don't know.
Isn't it a characteristic of live service games? Because like ultimately, live service games are going to end, and most likely they're not going to like convert them to like offline experiences. So we're going to lose them anyway. Yeah, and there's going to be like the very first time in most live service life cycles. Like Destiny 1 was like the first one, but like that wasn't really a live service as Destiny 2 is. I think that this is going to be the very first time that like live services have gotten big, and we're seeing like this first idea of like, hey, this thing will end and you're gonna lose it in like the consoles that people are playing it on right now, because these consoles are gonna lose it way earlier than PC or the next consoles are hopefully gonna like lose them, because hopefully these games will stick around for the longest time.
I think it's really interesting the notion of, do you own the game or whatever, because you have to look at one, UK law, which dictates like if you have bought something, whether or not it's digital or physical, you have to maintain the monetary worth of that product if that digital product goes away. So for example, if Blizzard were to shut down Hearthstone, they technically have to print out all the cards. They could print it out as cheap as chips, but they then have to print out all the cards and then send them to the people that have physically bought them, right? Because people put the money into the service. The next side of things is the notion that even though we're using services like Steam or Origin or a console or like an Xbox One or 360 or whatever, the mental security that we believe we physically own the thing, because at any point in time Microsoft can recall this was at least from the 360 era, because I read the terms and conditions. They could turn around and just go, nope, you're not allowed to do that anymore, we're shutting down your console, and we'll expect it back in the post. They could actually do that. They could actually physically shut down the console remotely. And yeah, it was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Well, when it I've heard about like the shutting down of consoles thing. I like that's a bit very gray area. I really don't like that. I'm pretty much like against like the entire like banning unless it's like really necessary, like use the least necessary force. When it comes to online services, like I'm fine with that in the sense of like, hey, if Activision comes around and says we're not going to support like Call of Duty anymore, or the online like gameplay side of things, or Xbox comes around and says we're not no longer supporting like the Xbox Live things like we have with the original Xbox. It's like that really sucks, but like that costs like money to actively like keep up. However, as long as I can like buy a thing and like put the disc in like the thing and like without having it connect to the internet, I can just play it. Then like I kind of own the thing and I can play it whenever I want. So like that gives me a piece of rest, and that's the peace of mind thing. And that's also why I really like physical games, because physical games, as long as I keep my thing unconnected to the internet and the game supports it, I can always play it. Unless the disc breaks, and then like we have no other problem. But hey, back it up.
NASA said that like ideally they'd release the server code, so people could like run their own servers for things like that. Like I think that works for some games, but how complicated does that get? Like where do you draw the line? Because it's the same thing with like the Minecraft servers. Like that's easy enough to do, but I have no idea what goes into, for instance, Warframe servers. Like how difficult are they to run?
Yeah, but also because Warframe is set up as a online game that's meant to run with 4 players and always online with the server, and that's not meant to run as a solo client game.
Well, no, it's Warframe is built to work with a minimal matchmaking server, right? And a IRC channel to do all the communication, things like this. Like these are really tiny things. You don't actually do some of the stuff like you did with Diablo 3, which was always online, right? The second your internet blipped, you were kicked off Diablo 3. Second your internet blips, the connection to the server blips, you're off Diablo 3. Connection to the server blips with Warframe, as long as you still have a connection to the other people that you're currently playing with, the match still resolves. Look at whenever they do an update. They shut down the server to update it, and then they restart the server. Your match still continues on because none of the information is directly relayed to through the Warframe servers, unlike Heroes of the Storm, League of Legends, any of that stuff. So there is the potential that they could do direct connecting to other players, doing that and matchmaking through that. But the biggest, I do not think they would ever want to release the server code if the game is still persisting on newer platforms, only because that could expose potential weaknesses to things like the whole void glitch thing, where he allegedly gave himself Excalibur Umbra before the sacrifice quest was even bloody announced. Right?
I would also assume this would be like an end of a lifetime thing, but at the same time, like when it comes to IPs like Warframe or like anything that's built up an audience over time, it's like you might need to shut it down now. But that doesn't mean that you want to like get rid of what you have, because like if you're gonna like release a server code and like oh, we're not gonna run this game anymore, so like you guys can have it, then like you kind of throw it out into like the public domain. Like you might still have like copyright over it, and like you might still have rights over it, but if you like throw out the server code and people can run it on their own machines, that becomes kind of a tricky thing if you want to like turn around a couple of years later and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna release this new thing, and then like you're gonna compete against this thing of yourself, more or less. So I don't think companies are like dying to like, oh, my game is over, here, you guys can have it. I don't think they're like really all that happy to do that.
You could just sell it again later down the line as a classic,
as a remaster. Good sir. I mean, it's really interesting you say this, because like I'm a huge fan of the Crysis franchise. I absolutely love Crysis. When they announced that they were going to do Crysis Remastered, I thought, oh, crack the knuckles. I'm going to start up Crisis 1 again on my new fancy Ryzen PC and see how well it runs. Turns out it doesn't run at all. It can't run at all. Nothing. Zilch.
Ooh.
So I'm like, yeah, okay, remastered, fine with that. I get to play it again and actually play it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh man. One thing that I was wondering about, and I want to know you guys' opinions on this. You mentioned, Drew, that like if a live service game were to like run out and like no longer be online anymore, like European regulations say that like you gotta be, or UK regulations say that you gotta like keep something of like value, like they can't just take it away. Wouldn't you think though that because the idea of a live service is as long as people are playing, as long as people are like paying money because like they're playing, so like because the idea is like the longer you give people the opportunity to play, the more money you can get. Wouldn't you think that if a like game were to get to a point where it needs to be shut down because it's probably no longer profitable anymore, or it has to shut down, wouldn't that be at a point where like, you know, wouldn't they stretch out that point so much that maybe there wouldn't be funds anymore to like pay out like, or like print this thing, or like hand out or send out these things? Like, let's say like, I don't think Warframe is going to die at any point soon, but I think that if it were to die at some point, like Digital Extremes would stretch that out as long as possible, because as long as they can still like make money from it, it's something that they can still make money from. So like,
I would say, to use a more relevant example, is Heroes of the Storm. Only because like Blizzard announced the big, oh look, you can buy a year super booster at BlizzCon and you'll be able to get all your experience, and oh, we're shutting down the game. It's all gone. You'll go.
It's not shutting down, is it? I thought it was just sort of they weren't supporting it because they're still releasing heroes and stuff. Tell you what, is a good example.
Are they?
Yeah, I think. I don't know if there's.
I do not know of a single hero that's come out this year.
I don't honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played Heroes in ages, but a game that comes to mind when you talk about like servers shutting down, I don't remember exactly why. I think the company went bust.
The rest of the point I was making.
Sorry, you can carry on, and we'll talk about this in a second.
You hurt my feels then. Right. The point I'm making is that even though Blizzard Activision aren't going anywhere, they've seriously stopped supporting Diablo 3, and they've stopped supporting Heroes of the Storm, or they're pretty much stopping support. But what I think these companies do is they let the attention span of the audience dwindle to nothing when they see that no one gives a shit anymore. That's when they'll shut down the servers. That's when they go, right, people won't give a fuck about asking for their equivalent. Like, I've put a fair chunk of cheddar into Hearthstone over the years. Actually, I don't know how much, but regardless. And like, if they turn around and say, we're shutting down the servers, I'm not going to turn around and say like, well, I want more money. I want me cards. You know, like I couldn't, what the fuck am I going to do with them? You know, I'll get them to print them, send them to me, and then throw them in the trash. Right? Because I don't care for it. And I think that is the mindset that is what prevents what you're talking about, Michelle, where companies would have to reimburse individuals for the digital currency that was spent. And then Xayl made me sad by saying Nosgoth.
Yeah, because I can't really remember why they shut down. I think it was whatever company was running it went bust or something like that. But then, like, there's not many games I remember that I think of that I think back and I'm like, oh, I can't play that anymore because it's not available anymore for whatever reason. Whether it's they just doesn't support it by the hardware, or whether the server shut down. But like, I don't know if I feel, because I think I remember buying stuff in Osgoth. Like I enjoyed it enough that I did spend a bit on it because it's free to play, wasn't it? It was. Was it? Or was it like I think it might have been like a founders pack or something I might have bought into.
No, I think it was free to play. There was a founders pack, I think. However, on April 8th, 2016, Square Enix announced that they had cancelled the game as it failed to captivate Yeah, captivate a broad audience. Yeah, it was
Fucking
shit.
awesome. It was such a cool idea, and they ruined
It was a cool idea, but like they didn't fucking market it. They didn't fucking, and they didn't expand upon it. It was a fucking mirror PvP game. Like, just fucking shit all over the Legacy of Kain franchise. Why don't you?
You're allowed to do spin-offs. If you actually support the main franchise as well.
Yeah, exactly. If you support the main fucking franchise. We've only got Michael Bell for a few more years. God damn it.
So before we started the stream, you mentioned something about Destiny 2 Xayl that they did that might relate to the topic. What was that about? Because
so about 3 hours ago? No, 2 hours ago, they released the start of. I don't know if anybody's been keeping up with the Destiny drama recently. They did actually go back and talk about like all the Eververse stuff and microtransactions, blah blah blah. So that's kind of got people in a good place right now. But it's stuff that's not going to happen for ages. But we've just been through an event that's incredibly grindy and very tedious, and people bored out of their mind over it. And this isn't very relevant to the whole obsolescence thing, but the event that's just basically there's been data mine stuff, and there's about a month left of the season that's currently going. And we have no roadmap for it. We don't know what's coming up on it, but loads of stuff was data mined for like story quests and things. And I was kind of hyped. I was like, oh, cool. Actually, something I can be bothered to do. And they today they released the quest. You do like one little conversation, and then it's like, here's a community event. Do 9 million public events collectively. And you can have the next stage in the quest. After the grind that we've just done with Guardian games, or some people have just done. I gave up like day 3 or something like that, but it's not really a good. That's not a great selling point to the live service model, because I feel like, just to go into that a bit more, is that Bungie's been doing their seasonal model since end of year 1, I guess, since Forsaken. They started doing like a season pass thing, which was broader, longer updates as opposed to like actual DLC packs like they did in the first year of D2. But the sort of model we're on now feels like almost life support. Like it's just sort of keeping it, keeping everybody going until the next year. And I feel like a lot of live services kind of just phone it in half the time anyway. So I don't know. Regardless of whether or not they'll be supported on previous platforms, don't really know how viable they are anyway. They must be to some extent because people pay for it. But
we've spoken previously on the FrameCast about remember franchise fatigue that like franchise games would have, like Mass Effect, or like the games that would always have like that. You would always have like installment 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, but you'd never have like 18 or something, because at a certain point people were like done with the story, and like new people that might want to like jump into it wouldn't jump in at like number 18, because like they would have to go back like 17 games. So most of the time, like that just meant that like, okay, we're done with this series, we're going to move on to another series. However, right now with like live services, what we're seeing is that like, they started at some point, and their premise was that, hey, we're starting from here and you can be along for the journey, you can be along for the ride. And that was amazing. However, after like committing to something for like 7, 8, whatever, how many years, where we're approaching on with these services now, it's like a lot of people that started back then are like, you can only commit for so much. And like people are like that have been from day one are starting to like branch out to other things, and people that join in are now faced with like 5 years of content to catch up on, and like maybe most of them are just like, yo, hey, nope. That is a little bit too much for me. If I need to do 5 years of content in order to get to like the first thing that like just brand new, I don't know if I'm interested. So like, do you think that like franchise fatigue, or what used to be called franchise fatigue before like live services with updates were a thing, is something that could be like one of the things that we're going to be experiencing with live services, or even are experiencing with live services right now?
Absolutely.
I mean, World of Warcraft is, I think, a brilliant example of this. So Blizzard recognized. So, God, how many expansions are there?
We're going into 9.0, I think. So this would be the 8th expansion.
Yeah. So, So let's say there's
top of vanilla.
9. Just to
Including
be
vanilla, yes.
including vanilla, there's 9, right? They realized very quickly that they did not want the player base to hang around in the old content, and they've made it easier each time to just speed through to the newer, more relevant stuff, ignoring the fecking I buy this boost thing for 50 fucking quid to get to the end of the game. And it's really interesting to how they have over 16 years now, or is it over 15 years now?
16. It'll be 16 because did we have the anniversary recently? I can't remember.
No, I thought the 15th anniversary was last year.
Oh, and yeah, it was 15 because the Deathwing mount. Yes, you're right.
Right. And so they've got 15 years worth of content effectively that's just packaged up, and they bring in new stuff. They want people to get to the new stuff instantly, apart from Boats of Azeroth. No one ever wants to get Boats of Azeroth. Minor gripe.
Is it minor?
But the biggest issue is, as you put it, franchise for you end up playing a game for absolutely fucking ages, and then you're just like, oh, I'm so fucking sick and done of this, right? To be honest, my interest has sparked recently of World of Warcraft, and I am really tempted to resubscribe to the game. Nothing's changed since I don't know when the last patch came out, but
83 was January, I want to say.
Oh, really?
It might have been earlier than that, possibly. I don't know. I can't remember. But
even so, people come and go when it comes to World of Warcraft. Like some of my friends, they play at the beginning of an expansion and then just don't play again, right? I like to stick around. I like to play with my friends, but one of the biggest stumbling blocks of World of Warcraft is its inaccessibility of being able to play with just anyone. So, for example, I'm a Horde player. Zayl's primarily an Alliance. No, what?
I've literally been having this conversation on Twitter with somebody not an hour ago. So
right, okay, It is a stumbling block. Why can't I play with Xayl? I have made friends with him much more recently than the game fucking came out. I didn't even know Xayl played World of Warcraft until we became friends, but I cannot play with him because he is a different faction.
That is just so weird.
Yeah, right. Then there was other problems.
It is such an arbitrary barricade and people sort of hold on to it as oh, I don't know, but my PvP.
It's they fucking got rid of PvP service, didn't they? You have to.
Yeah, but no. I'm just saying, people argue that the point of there's no point to PvP if there's no lore reason behind it. But there's no lore reason behind it anyway.
But I've got instances where I've got friends in the States who message me saying "Oh, Xeno, come play World of Warcraft with us."
Wrong servers.
No, because I'd have to buy the game again for America, and then I'd have to have a second active subscription to play in America.
Do you?
Yes.
I'm fairly certain you don't. Because I've played on the NA servers. Maybe it's changed, but I vaguely remember I didn't have to pay for another. It might just because it was I know you have to pay. You're right. You have to pay for the game again, which I guess is kind of mitigated by the thing that they don't expect you to pay for all the old expansions. You can just play free to play. Within free to it's not like a buy to play. You don't even need to buy all the you only have to pay for the most recent expansion and your sub. That's it.
Yeah.
Which some people that's a lot, but going back to the thing you were saying about just sort of drive us back to the live service thing. I feel WoW, the reason it still survives because the way it's designed is that it's getting a steady supply of money from people because of that. And it's something that you don't have to play all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You can just come back to it every so often. Whereas I feel a lot of games these days, you can see it with the way that especially Destiny has their seasonal content that's kind of very drawn out and it's very kind of intermittent, but it's thinner and wider. And it's the same with I think what we've seen happen to Warframe over the last 2 years. I'm sure you could say that for like other games as well. It feels like it's they expect you to play all the time as opposed to come back a lot of the time. Because I don't,
Fucking felt that with Heroes of the Storm. That was awful for it.
like Steve said that like Warframe's the wife, not the mistress, or whatever it was. So you come back to it all the time, but it's like I don't see the game as like that. Like I feel like it's kind of they're trying to do you play all the time, and then you get hyped over this little new thing, and something else comes along, but you've been playing all but like between it anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I have a
That
question.
contributes to the fatigue thing, definitely.
I have a question for you both, right? So the whole sentiment of Warframe's the wife, not the mistress, right? I mean, aside from the joke that I now have to make as I bring on the harem, right?
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, do you think players are treating X game, be it Overwatch, Destiny 2, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, War McJiggers,
things. Just any game.
you
Warframe,
don't
whatever.
know it's the game mode that came
Warzone?
out with Modern
Warzone,
Warfare.
I think it is. isn't it?
Warzone, there you go. Are
Double check that.
people, huh?
Gonna double check that real quick.
Are people treating one game as the wife, regardless of what the game is? Regardless of whether or not it's a shit game or it's an amazing game, obviously based on opinion.
It depends.
But are they treating it as this is the wife
I
rather
think-
than it's just a game?
I think that it really depends on like what kind of affinity they have towards the game or what kind of like things they're looking for. I think that there is definitely like diehard fans with any game that will like live and die by it. Though it differs. Like I don't think you'll find people that will live and die by like FIFA 11. Though who knows? Maybe there are. Like
No. Oh fucking hell no!
but
some of my old work colleagues.
Ugh.
But like you're gonna have like with any game you're gonna have like or anything, any franchise or anything that they can identify with, you're gonna have people that are like dying for it and like it's my thing. I think that like one thing that's become rather like clear to me with live services like Destiny and very much Warframe is that like in the beginning, like it felt like there's a lot of like content coming out in big drops. So like while you're moving through the content which you haven't played yet, like boom, there's this big thing, and there's this big thing. And it seems like they're developing for like your enjoyment of like here you go something new, here you go something new. With the seasonal content, especially season passes, like the Nightwave sort of things, like that's also pretty much a season pass idea. It becomes very clear that like the goal of live service games isn't primarily to entertain. The goal of live service games is primarily to keep you playing, because the longer you play, the more money they can make. And that's part of the free-to-play model. But that becomes very, very apparent once you've gone through all the content and you're kind of like sitting at the bleeding edge. And then like it would be more like better to the player's health, I think. I don't know. It would be better to the player if you could say like, hey, we are dropping this big update or this big piece of content like around this time, and here you go, here's the big thing. However, I feel like I'm tuning into Destiny now more and more, but I feel definitely with Warframe that like they are using this idea of using events and like little sprinklings of like what is the thing again? What is the thing? The prologues to like instead of like dropping like a big
Don't fucking
thing.
get me started.
It's like they're just sprinkling things in between to like keep you playing. And I think that that's something where like if you are like on this place where you're like, oh yeah, I kind of like like I kind of want to like tune out, then it's like, no, you gotta commit or you're gonna leave. You have no in between. And that might be something
I think that's a huge fallacy. Like I think that the mentality of like either commit or leave is entirely self-imposed or peer
pressure. So a question for you then. So there, like, I did not play the Warframe event thing with the last Railjack thing. There was lore attached to that, wasn't there?
If you call it
Yeah.
that, yes.
So right now, Defend is gone. Can you still access that lore?
Yeah.
I assume so. Yeah, I think it's just given. Is it
It'd be
given to
stupid
you?
if. Yeah.
Is it just given to you? Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. You just get because that's part of the thing I hated about it. It was literally just like, here's your
Slither.
lore ticket. Enjoy the cutscene, then go grind for a month,
But even
and
so,
we'll get nothing out of it.
But even so, like, look at me. Like, I played. So typically, right? Again, bringing this back to World of Warcraft because it's, to me, that's got like the biggest expanse of, what I can draw from. I typically always get to the maximum level of every expansion before I even consider leaving the game, like canceling my subscription and stuff like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
This latest expansion, right?
Oh, no.
I did the first of 3 zones, and then nope. I hate the plot. It's awful. Don't like it. So I canceled my subscription. Now that the last patch is out, and like Joey's been playing it on stream, Loz is playing it again, I'm tempted. Like, I'm tempted to pick it up again. Hell, I could, even with a subscription, I think it's one subscription for both classic and retail, isn't it?
Yeah. It's both.
Like, I could pick up classic. I could pick up classic with Xayl, right? I could do all sorts, but the point is that something can make you so, I suppose, nauseated with a franchise, not
It is the
just, huh?
It's what it is. It's the fatigue. You just get,
Yeah.
like maybe if this wasn't, maybe I don't know what. Give me your favorite expansion so far.
Oh, what, Wrath?
Okay, so Wrath straight into Battle for Azeroth. I don't think you would necessarily have given up quite as fast.
Oh yeah.
You didn't like Legion. I personally did, but
Didn't play Legion.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right.
Sorry. I thought you didn't like it. I thought Legion was quite good, but regardless,
Yeah.
It's just it's the same thing of like the game tires you out, and I think it exhausts the developers, it exhausts the players, and it's literally there just for the money. That's all that the game exists there to make the most amount of money in the most efficient amount of time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the way the industry goes. Like people, it's like free to play a couple of years ago, where free to play microtransactions, loot boxes, and things like that. And it like you see all these trends come in, and sometimes they'll be positive for the game, and sometimes they'll be really, really bad for it. And I feel like live services are definitely one of the like more long-winded, damaging things on the games industry.
So
like it's going to be going for a long time before they start being like going out of fashion, I reckon.
So
go on.
Okay, so I think that there is definitely like a good element to live services. Like when I join into like, first of all, live services allow for like the free to play mentality idea of like a game. Like you wouldn't give out like a free to play $60 like end-to-end game because you wouldn't make money off that. But like Warframe, Destiny, like they're games right now that you can like start out in and grow with. Like that was a really, really awesome thing. If you like, when I was at that age where I didn't have any money, like I could just like start out with this game and just like grow with it, and that was amazing. So I think that there's a place for it. However, I've recently finished watching Gravity Falls, which is like this really cool kid show that's also really, really cool to watch if you're not a kid. It's like it's kind of this like mystery style like cartoon. 2 seasons of 20 episodes. They only made 2 seasons. That was it. And like it was an amazing show. It was really well written. There were many like it was playing around with so many like clues that you could solve and so many like plot lines and plot twists that were going around. It was really an amazing experience to go through. Now, an interesting thing is that this series, Gravity Falls, is very closely aligned to Rick and Morty. There are even like these 2 series, like the creators of both series, like are good friends. So these series also like cross over, and there's also theories that these.
Is this the mug? Is this going to be the mug that like goes through the pool or something like that?
That's one of them. They're like characters from like both series have shown up in the series themselves. Like there's within the series as like Rick was here or something like that, indicating that these series like are closely tied together. But that's not really the interesting thing about it, because like what I want to talk about with posing Gravity Falls over to Rick and Morty is that Rick and Morty like started out with like it started out with the first couple of seasons, which were really, really, really good. And I still think that they're really, really good. But like there's also been like a lot of criticism towards Rick and Morty that's like it's dragging out now. Like they're like, is it still as clever as it was before? And like they've recently done an episode which might have like been a response to people like being like, this is not according to my fan theory. This is not exactly the way that I wanted it to be. Or the publisher like trying to stretch it out for as much money and entertainment and like possible value that they can get out of it. And what I think that these two series like pose is like this idea of like, if you have an idea for like a story or like a gripping story, like you start out with something and you will have an idea for an end, and you can like make that and that will be it. And you can expand on it, but like you're not going to be able to expand infinitely on it, I feel. Like I think at a certain point, like if you want, like it's going to like degrade the story or degrade like the final product if you're going to like, oh shit, like you can't make more plot twists up at a certain point because you've gone like through like everything. So with that, do you think that like when it comes to like plot lines or just like the general idea of like a live service, isn't there a point where it's like, hey guys, you know, we've exhausted the original idea, we need to wrap this up and start with something new so that we can have like a fresh start with like a new idea, which can where we will have like an idea with, because things ending is sad, but at the same time it's also kind of good in a way.
I think specifically with like, if we want to tie this back to games, this is relevant because in Destiny at the moment, they've set up the darkness as the big bad of the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they've showed like the big pyramid ships and everything, and it's been slowly like there's loads of lore about it, and like they're moving closer and closer and closer. They've got plans for Destiny to go on to year 7. We are in year 3 going into year 4 next year. The pyramid ships are arriving probably in the next few months. Like, this is the big bad of the series. Where do you go from there for the next 3 years? Like, what do you do for even longer? If it's year 4, 5, and 6 and 7, what are you doing in that? Like, where does the plot go? I feel like it's the same thing as with Warframe, in that one of the things that frustrated me recently is that it feels like the story is being unnecessarily dragged out, and I wonder if they're suffering from that same thing of what are we going to do next? Like, where do we get? Like, you can see them setting up all the Deviri stuff, but it's like the new war could have been done months ago. Like, they could have finished it ages ago and not drawn it out. And I think that they've hit a point where they're just like, fuck, what do we do with the story? We had this as like our main plot line. Where does this go now? And
I agree.
having to like scramble to like, plan ahead.
I kind of feel like Warframe suffers from like fanfic syndrome kind of thing, where you know, they are in control of their own narrative, but they are like, it's like, oh, but what if this happened? But what if this happened? Oh my god, this could happen, right? Like, you know, hell, my own fan theory of Ballast was actually a sentient all along, right? I mean, yeah, it's been poo-pooed now, but you know, still, it was a fan theory, and I think that is what is prolonging a lot of the events within the game. But likewise, you could have weird shit, which is fucking Warcraft. Like, you're never gonna fight a Titan.
You fought a Titan.
No, Legion, you fight a Titan.
Well, you fight a, you know, they kind of like soften it. They're like, right. They bring
and now
it down.
we're fucking fight. No, you fight Argus, don't you?
Yeah, Argus is like a super weakened, or it's like a newborn or some. You know, there's always a qualifier because you don't actually fight Sargeras. So
no, but
he's the only proper Titan that is fully powered and everything.
Yeah, but then like, oh, now you're fighting an old god.
Yeah, don't.
And now you're gonna fight the.
Talk to me about N'Zoth. It's not gonna be mad.
No, I wasn't. I was gonna say now you're gonna fight the personification of death.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, it's like the thing is, like, with taking Warframe as an example, is that like what we saw with their first cinematic quest, the Second Dream, worked really well because it was something that like wasn't anticipated, but it was made like they kind of knew that something like this was going to happen when they started out the game. Like, they had this idea. There was this idea of like the Tenno, and like going back, like you can see some hints, you can see some ideas, like, oh shit, if I knew this before, then I knew what this meant. That sort of thing.
I mean, yeah.
And like that's that's something which you can do if you like once you start a story, you can write things in which you're gonna like meet later on because like you know what's gonna happen. However, I definitely agree with like the fanfic thing, and I think that this is something which like degrades a story or like a story experience or like makes it very hard to follow or very hard to like even think like what are we gonna do next. When you're like gonna incorporate many different things, or like, oh, that's a cool idea, or that's a cool idea. And I think that with Warframe, you saw that with the War Within following up, where like that was kind of rewritten because people were expecting more of it, but still managed to be a great quest. And then you had the sacrifice come in, which I feel was really written because people wanted Umbra, and it could have been something entirely different.
It could have been entirely about all of your. You could have just had it about your frame. Why does it have to be about a specific one?
Yeah, or about
just,
Stalker.
yeah.
Like, what's up with why
it's a delivery system for the thing that people wanted, as opposed to. Because you know there was all back in the day where like Steve was like, oh, I want to give you Umbra and have it mean something, and it was like, just fucking put it in the game. Like,
and now it's like, and now it's like I think they're trying to just like figure out how to like in a good way present this twist of like Nata, the Lotus, the Sentience. However, the problem with that is that like, unlike the Tenno, which were kind of like written in, like thought up, and they had a clear concept of what that was going to be, and like they just threw it in, and everyone was surprised. This was something which was probably pretty surprising with like the, when was it? Like years ago with like the Nata and Bellas, the Apostasy prologue. Like that was like wow, and now it's like. I think they're trying to go for another like wow thing, or like, oh yeah, she's gonna side with us, or we're gonna kill her or something. But everyone's seeing it coming, and it's just like, here we go, here we go, and that's something that's indicative of like, you know, a story is dragging on for very long, and like you know, how are you gonna continue on with it? Like, are you able to like continue on with a story like this, or is there a point where you have to say like, okay, we've run everything that we wanted to tell? Like, is the story complete?
So, bringing it back to
we've diverged a bit there.
Yes.
Sorry, get me on story and I'll just fucking...
Yes. So, going back to how we feel live services will be impacted by consoles, right?
Wow, we did come a long way.
Yeah. Right. So, I do feel that franchise fatigue is a serious thing. I totally get that. I feel that franchise fatigue is pretty much what's utilized to make sure that these games as a service effectively
wind down.
Yeah, why? I was going to say commit suicide, but yes, wind.
Yeah, like you know, you're right. Sort of the way Diablo 3 is going, where they're kind of
gone. Yeah,
well, you know, but like I know people who still play it, and they do occasionally like roll something out into a season, but it's like it's never anything substantial. They're not doing any more DLC for it. They're you know pretty clearly working on Diablo 4.
And maybe that's another solution. Maybe that's another way for these developers and publishers to incentivize people to abandon platforms, right? What if Activision Blizzard's method of getting people to give up on Diablo 3 is to announce Diablo 4, right? Say, hey guys, Diablo 4 coming on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 5. You know, do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's definitely... I guess the argument is that you can have things like Destiny 1 where people always go like, oh, Destiny 1 was so much better. We might get that with Diablo 4 where people play Diablo 4 and they're like, oh, Diablo 3 was so much better. Good. What are you talking about? Which is, you know, that'd be very surprising at this point. But,
well, I mean,
you know, it could happen. Yeah,
Diablo.
People always say about Diablo 2, and I don't know so much about Diablo 1, but like there is a certain, you know, part of it's just nostalgia, but it's the kind of, another kind of I think it's better to go to just have you can have a game as a service, but it should be finite. It shouldn't go on forever. There should be a punctuation mark. And I think, you know, even on PC, it should be that you pick a time where the game is going to end, and if you're going to carry on the franchise, that's fine. But you need to like take a step back and then, you know, reinsert yourself into the you know, where the game is in however many years in a new form. because I feel like it kind of refreshes everything and gets people more. You're always going to bring new players in as well with the sequel.
Well,
But-
I think it's going to be like a really, really interesting time period for the coming few years because first of all, like with the franchise fatigue that we spoke about, I definitely agree that like there should be an end to these things. But like the live service idea is that you keep people playing for as long as possible because the more they play, the more they pay you. That's where you get your money from. So like the entire idea of live service is that there is no end and there's always playtime and you always continue on. So like I also know like when I heard about like Destiny 2 coming out, I was like, yo, hey, if I put like thousands of hours into Destiny 1, and now in order to like get the next update, I've got to buy an entirely new game and start over again, like the way that I felt about it because I never played Destiny 1, so like I don't know the details about it. But it's like that just felt like, no, I don't want to sign up for that because like I also got these live service games where if I put in hours in like 2014, I can now still like enjoy that. So I think that that's going to be like a really, really tough, like interesting thing to see, like how they're going to deal with that. And number two is if you're going to move on to a sequel, what will the original be? Like as we said, like they're probably not going to give up the server code. Like it's probably not going to be like, oh, here you go, now you can play it solo. But like if they're not going to do that, and like it will always require a server, and at some point like the servers will shut down, like we're going to lose like big games, like not just like a single like game that was made over a couple of years, but we're going to lose like big games that were made over years and years and years with years and years of content. We're just going to lose them because no one can access them in the future anymore, and that's going to be really interesting too, because like you're not going to be able to go back and like show your grandkids or whatever like, oh, look at this game, like this game I played in my childhood, because it just won't exist anymore and we just won't have this piece of history.
I have a really, really good point here. Like, so if we look back, how do we still have things like the Sega Mega Drive ROMs? How do we still have the SNES or GBA ROMs or things like that? The typical answer to that is the fact that we have the cartridges and then we build something to pull the game code out. And then we emulate the actual hardware to play the actual game. So, but I think the biggest point you have, I don't know if you've intentionally pointed this out, but with Destiny 1's release, you have like a disc of the game. Cool, we still have the disc. But what about all the DLC content?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
There's something about this. I remember reading this recently. If you buy the disc, you can get like a Game of the Year type thing for Destiny 1. It doesn't include, or it does include the codes for all the DLC, but the codes have expired. So you just straight up don't get anything for that. Like
Wow.
I don't know if you can even buy them. I assume you can. I assume you can just buy them online, but it's, the only way to do that now is to buy them through whatever service, PS3 or PS4 online, Xbox Online, whatever, Xbox Live. I guess that's not necessarily. It's just weird. It's very odd. I'm not sure if there's a problem. I mean, obviously, I guess terms of conditions kind of probably predictates that like all these codes can expire, but it's.
I mean, it's like, yes, like I'm fine that like the terms of service can say that, and like, okay, I can't play that anymore. Like, fine, but it's like that will just mean that like in 100 years we're not gonna have any of this content anymore. We're not gonna have any like Destiny will just be like, oh, if you want to like watch, like see what that was like, go watch some YouTube videos, because like you can't actually play the game anymore.
Yeah.
And that's like you
want to
want that as a
disappear
developer.
into irrelevance anyway. Like everything will eventually.
The super interesting thing is we'll still have copies of the original Sonic the Hedgehog available, but not Destiny 1.
No.
Right? Oh, sorry, not Destiny 1, The Taken King. Right? Like that is just like so.
Yeah,
but Sonic exists partly because in that form now because it's so culturally important, as opposed to
No, but
Destiny.
what I mean,
but it's like if I have like the Sonic game as I bought it, And like, I mean, like it's way easier because because you could extract it and then emulate it only if you own the original copy of the game. Let's keep that in mind.
Or if someone does, right?
Yeah,
But-
if someone within your household does, keep it legal, please. But whatever.
No, but my point is
Yeah.
that with Destiny 1, actually, I assume you guys. Do you guys understand my point?
Yeah, like
Sort
if I have the Sonic game right now, I can just like plug that in and play it.
Yeah.
But where if I have like the Destiny disc right now and Destiny is gone, like the servers are gone, everything is gone of it. If I just throw in that disc, can't play it. Can't play the DLC because that's not on the disc. That's not on there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to download that, but I can't download it anymore because the servers are down.
Exactly. That's the point I'm making.
Mhm.
Like I have this with Crisis 2. There's a HD texture pack, and there's like a DX11 what's it called add-on and things like that. And you download them. You go on like mycrisis.com and you can download the game. And so you download the add-ons and you install them, so on and so forth. But mycrisis.com has since then gone. So the only way you can actually find them is by trying to search for the actual files themselves and find like a mirrored site that actually still hosts it. But with things like console games where the DLCs are controlled exclusively by Microsoft,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you to do?
I mean, Xbox Live on like the original Xbox doesn't work anymore. So like, I'm really curious what's gonna happen with like the Xbox 360. So like with the original Xbox case, like you can't play multiplayer anymore. Now I understand that, but like at that time they weren't really into like the downloadable games kind of thing. But like 360 was very much into like, oh, you can download games. Right now they're super into you can download games. That you can even buy an Xbox without a disc drive. So it's like, well, what's going to happen if, like, in 20 years' time, they're going to say, well, no more Xbox Live for your Xboxes, and then, like, you're stuck with... I mean, the Wii had it, actually. The Wii Shop channel went down, and now, like you can't download Wii games anymore that you purchased through the Wii Shop channel. So, like, if you delete a game that you have on your Wii, you can't re-download it again. So, like, that's why some Wiis are really, like, valuable because they have games which could only be acquired for the Wii Shop channel and can't be acquired anymore, so you can only acquire them because if you've downloaded them on the Wii. That's going to be a weird situation.
Yeah, that is weird.
But then again, these games are like offline games. So like if you could crack into the Wii and then like extract the file, you could emulate it. However, when it comes to like online games that require you to be online, like you couldn't even like take them because they require you to be online, and then what you do.
I mean, I think it's really bad that Destiny 1 was sold with a Game of the Year edition that did not have the extra content built into the game.
I think it's just, like, yeah, it's just, it was done with codes, and I guess that's sort of, maybe it's just the architecture of the way they sold all the DLC is that you literally couldn't have it be legitimate and be on the disc or some shit. Or I don't know. There'll be some reason. Or maybe it is just to skim that extra however many dollars off of people for DLC that came out years and years ago. And the point is, it's like, oh, you missed out. Or you should have bought it at the time when it was being, all these codes were printed. But
yeah, that's weird.
Or fucking just give me a second disc,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe it's just the case that in the years to come, we'll see like the tech and the sort of skill appear that people are, we already have emulations of, as you say, like a lot older games. Maybe we'll just get to the point where we have the tech to be able to run these sort of private servers and stuff that people manage to sort of crack into the original games and run their own version of it somehow,
So another question I have for the pair of you is, do you consider the sort of what did you oh god, you there's an actual business term for this where it's gonna break. What's you said it earlier?
Planned obsolescence.
Thank you, planned obsolescence.
Yeah.
Do you think that the DLC side of things being supported exclusively by the manufacturer is part of planned obsolescence in a very sly, subtle way, in a point where they can go, "Oh look, Destiny 1 remastered, thumbs up." You know, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of. I mean, I think it's more just it's like remastered of any game though. It doesn't have to necessarily be something with DLC. It's like, wasn't it World of Warcraft? No, World of Warcraft. Blizzard basically took Warcraft 3 away from people for Battle.net or something like that, like the original version that you could get on there, and now you can only get at the remaster or something like that.
Yeah. So the idea was that this isn't so like with
That's shady. That's
Yeah.
pretty like but
Yeah.
when it comes down to like just you know, I think it's a bit of both because it depends on the company, and sometimes I feel like, you know, they see the want for the game that people loved back in the day and they're like, oh, we'll release it remastered and we'll actually put effort into it and actually improve it, and or, you know, or leave it exactly as it was and release it for current architecture or whatever like that. But I don't necessarily think it's, you know, blanket always going to be money, 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 money. It's more like, you know, money, 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 but we, you know, it didn't come from a place of we've planned this years in advance. Maybe now that like this is proven to be able to sell, maybe people are doing this a bit more. But I couldn't think to see inside the minds of all the, you know, greedy executives sitting there wringing their hands and thinking about all the dollar they can make off of people selling people the same game 10 years later. But
what do you think,
knows?
Michelle?
Yeah, I don't think
Is
that
DLC
there is.
kind of-
I don't think it's necessarily like there's not that much evil intent. Like there might be, but I don't think it is. I think it's more genuine. Like, hey, most of the time there's like an expiration date on these codes. I don't know. There's probably a reason for that. And
No,
most of the time,
I mean, like generations down the line, when you like the Xbox 360 is no longer supported, or the Xbox One is no longer supported, and you put in Destiny 1 to play the Taken King, but the DLC is there, not there to download.
yeah,
right?
but like,
Do you think that is
but
planned
like,
obsolescence?
I don't necessarily think that is, because like the problem is in the DLC thing. It's like like the idea is like the downloadable content idea is that like it's really nice. Like I can buy a game, and instead of like having to like buy, remember like the Pokemon Sword and Shield thing, or like the Pokemon thing where you have to buy like a new game if you want to have like just a little bit of extra content.
Yeah.
They had this thing where if you wanted to like buy the game with a little bit of extra content, you had to buy a new game. And now we have this thing where like, hey, we have service now, and we can just like give you that, like you can download it, and then like you don't have to buy the entire game, and it will be cheaper, it will be easier, it will be better for everyone in that sort of way. You don't have to buy the entire game. However, these things can only work when like the servers are online. It's the same thing with like Google Drive and like YouTube. Like, is YouTube like secretly planning like, oh, you know, we're gonna take everyone's videos, or Google like, oh, we're gonna take everyone's folders on their drives, and then once we go bust in 500 years, they're all gonna be gone. Ha ha ha. It's like, no, it's like, you know, right now this service works. And right now it's still like the platform's still so profitable enough that they can continue to support like the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, like the network locations. However, in the future, there's going to be a time where that cost is going to be like there is no need to run these servers for like the one or two people that are going to be running, like logging in, and that's what I'm curious about. And I just think that they haven't really like considered that, or didn't think it was worth considering, seeing that it was like such a long time away. I don't think it was necessarily malicious intent. It's just like it's built into like DLC. It's like it requires like downloadable content doesn't require you to buy an extra disc. However, it does require active servers, and active servers are pretty cheap to maintain if you like have them for thousands or millions of people, but they're going to be quite expensive to maintain if you're just having them for a handful of people that still want to access them.
It's not profitable. So yeah, I guess that's the answer.
Yeah.
Is like it's
So-
unlikely they'll bother because it won't make the money off of it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, why did they use on like the whatever, like why did they use the SCART cable, or why did they use like the free pin interface for like the AV interface on like the Nintendo 64? Like, were they planning that you had to like upgrade with like an HDMI cable? It's like that's the thing that worked at that time. And like they're not going to guarantee that it works in the future. And like right now, like this thing of like having things online, it feels super like permanent, even though it's not. But like right now it works, and I think it's more of like, oh, right now it works kind of approach. And seeing that like a lot of like codes for Call of Duty games of PlayStation 3 era also don't work anymore. Many people don't care because the same thing which you said, like, you're not going to care about like that one game if that shuts down. Like, you don't want to like get the thing. It's like the same thing. Like, people don't play their PlayStation 3 games anymore because PlayStation 4 is the new hot thing. So like the handful of people that care about it is like, they're just going to be whatever because it will cost them more to like care about it than not.
So when you raise the whole thing about Google Drive and YouTube and stuff, so first off, I assume you both know that Google operates YouTube at a loss.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, yeah.
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 So I think the big reason why why Google keeps YouTube around is because of the sheer monopoly on community-based videos it has, right? Everyone typically just goes to YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? You know, even when I'm looking for tutorials on how to do X, Y, or Z, I will even look at YouTube because as a primary source, because it's just easier. And it's this whole mental brand loyalty thing. Because at some point in time, I'd be amazed if it didn't. At some point in time in the future, like, internet-based videos are just going to explode. Look at the whole COVID-19 situation, what that's done for the likes of Netflix. The whole idea of video on demand is just so much more appealing now than it was a couple of months ago. And I think it's interesting the fact that these companies will maintain operating something at a loss to be the top thing. So for a long time, Blizzard has not announced what the yearly subscribers or quarterly subscribers are for World of Warcraft. So my question is, how low does the number of subscribers have to be for World of Warcraft for them to continue to operate the way they do? Would they even continue to do it at a loss? Only because they are the MMO.
It depends on their like their internal numbers. Like the thing that you're kind of, one thing that resembles this idea is like the halo effect. So it's like you're gonna have like some companies, like let's say Apple right now, where like this is where the term is like popular right now, the halo effect idea is like Apple right now has like introduced this tower PC, and they have like wheels that you can put underneath the tower PC, so you can like run like move around your cheese grater Mac PC. You can move it around on wheels, but the wheels don't have brakes, so they will just continue to roll around, and the wheels are just random like standard aluminium wheels with rubber on them. They cost $700 if you want to buy them, by the way. 4 wheels, and people are going nuts about it. Like, why is this $700? It's not worth it. It's insane. It's like, well, like the reason why they price it that high is because like that gives this like this idea of like, oh, it's so expensive, it's so exclusive. It's like the Halo product where like you can only get it if you're expensive. Like that gives the entire brand, gives it like this idea of like it being supreme, even though like half the people are walking around with iPhones. And what you're seeing there is like they're running different divisions where like this one set of wheels maybe makes so much profit, but like this other product that they sell at a loss. However, they can do that because like you know they use different products, and like so like it's the one compensates the other. And like I think in the case of Google and YouTube, it's like YouTube being like, I think it's like in the top 5 most visited sites, most internet traffic sites. Like it is something where like if Google's product is like selling advertisement space and like following like their users around, having YouTube is such a smart move that if they run that as at a loss, they will recompensate that somewhere else. And like that's why it's really, really good. So when it comes to like World of Warcraft, if that is like if they're operating that at a loss, but because of like the recognition, because there's such a brand recognition around World of Warcraft, there's such a recognition from people that haven't even played it that still know what it is, because that's still there, like that influences their other products. If that influences their other products at like where they make more profit because it's still there, they'll continue to do it. But at a point where it's like there's nothing that they benefit from with having that there, and they're just like continuing to like lose money into it, it'd be kind of dumb to like keep it up. And that's what I think their approach would be, and that would be internal numbers, which I have no idea about at all.
Thoughts, Zeno?
Yeah, so it makes me wonder, would a company like Bungie or Digital Extremes continue to operate something like Destiny 2 or Warframe after the release of Destiny 3 or Warframe going on the PlayStation 5 if the cost of the earnings from it operating on those platforms would cover the losses of continuing to run Destiny 2 or Warframe on PlayStation 4?
I
Is
guess
that
it's
more
kind of
a
like, I don't
Go
know.
on.
I think at least with DE, like they've got a kind of. I mean, Steve loves to show off how accessible the game is and how it works with like any. It works on like any
Yeah.
machine. I feel like there's, as Michelle said, like there's a value to having that status that isn't necessarily monetary. I don't know if I could say the same about like Destiny and Bungie because it's not really the same thing. I can't really think of anything that they do in that same vein. Like it's valuable to them to be on a lower sort of tier console or whatever because they can be like, oh yeah, we you can play us on anything. You can play us on the PS3, PS4. Well, you can't play on the PS3, but you can play on the PS4. You can play on the PS5, on the Xbox One, and the Xbox Series X as well, and on PC and on Switch, and just everything.
Neo Geo.
It's the pull there is that you're getting breadth rather than depth, I think, if that makes any sense, in terms of like they just want to scattershot and be like, look, even if it's
no, but
because it helps the image as well. Like if it draws more players to the current one because of the accessibility that everybody else is like, more people talking about it because more people could try it and more people play it. Like even if it is operating at a loss, as you say, on the lower tier stuff, then if it's sort of I don't know how the hell you'd prove that with like the numbers for that, but
that would be like cost of maintaining the servers and
but like how would you know that that's where it's coming from, that like that the people who are playing the lower level platforms or whatever.
It's probably also an element of like these like live service games are selling a promise, like basically
I want to clarify something. The idea of Destiny 3 would be that the DLC content, the expansions and everything from Destiny 2 would not be accessible. So it's a case of they're pushing, like they did between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, they pushed everything from scratch to a new environment. That is what I'm proposing again. So would you see a company like Bungie, or Digital Extreme, say it's Warframe and Warframe 2, would they maintain the older operating at a loss platform, right? The game for the, I suppose, publicity of the fact that you've got the big shiny new game, the Destiny 3, the Warframe 2.
Yeah, why don't you also go and play through Warframe? I guess it's the same thing of like, would they put it into a form that you can play it through and it's just a one and done thing, as opposed to, because you wouldn't I wouldn't go into like Destiny 1 expecting to still be playing it now. I've never played it. I would probably, if I had the opportunity to, I'd probably play through it, but I would play what I could, and then I'd just go back to playing the games I play now.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how their monetary structure works, because like if they're still like, hey, you can still buy these currencies for this thing, or you can still buy this, like there is still like profit to be gained. However, if there isn't, and it's just going to be a dead loss, it's no matter what, then I think it's still like an image thing. For at least a little while, because like live service sell a promise. It's like if your service or like your game requires you to be constantly online, and like the game can't promise you that it will be online tomorrow, then like you're not going to spend a couple $100 on buying like DLC for it or like spending it on premium currency or anything. So like if they were to go like, hey, tomorrow we're releasing our sequel and we're also shutting down the old game, then no one's going to buy the sequel because everyone's going to be like, hold on. So we're going to invest everything in here, and next month you're coming out with something new and you're going to shut us down again. Like, why would we invest in this if we're going to lose this? So like they'll keep that up to like have this like keep people forgetting about this thing it's gonna be finite, it's gonna end, and all that sort of stuff, and like have this idea. It's like, oh, it's always accessible, and then like at a certain point when like everyone's moved on, the way that you pointed out earlier, Drew, where it's like when most people have moved on, they can be like, oh, okay, we'll just shut it down, and like that will probably be a point where like the profit that they gain from like having people like believe in the image, having people like believe in like, oh, this is something that I can reliably invest in and it seems fair, like the profit that they gain from that anymore, from like the small player base that still does it, is no longer like worth the losses that they make from it. They're just gonna be like, it's over.
It's gonna be really weird when you see like remasters go through this, like Warcraft 3 remaster. I mean, just pretend with me here for a minute that Warcraft 3 remaster was really good, and it did really, really well, and it sold a load of copies, and people really enjoyed it. And then in like 10 years to 20 years, whatever, they're like, we're going to do Warcraft 3 remaster.
Oh yeah.
And it's, like the idea of, it's very surreal, the idea of this server that was a recreation of the original game being shut down in favor of another upgrade of the original game.
But you have that with Final Fantasy Remake as well, like Final Fantasy 7 Remake. It's like, they remade it. Like, what, in like 20, 30 years, they're going to be like, Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Woo!
Well, Remake has a lot of kind of controversy around it, though, from the fact that it's not strictly a remake. Spoiler-free there.
Regardless of that, you do really raise a valid point. Like, I cannot think of many games that the remake either meets or surpasses the original. Maybe StarCraft, the original StarCraft.
Is that not, partly like, nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses and all that? It's like you have this image of the game, and it's not just... It's like there's a lot of drama going on with WoW at the moment, but like, I can't remember one of the devs basically being like, oh no, I think it was one of the ex-devs basically being like, oh, the game's not social anymore, and then I think it was Ian or somebody said that it is social, but like in a different way. And I think it's part of it is just you will never be able to with remakes. It's definitely like you'll never be able to recapture what you loved about the original game because it was a first-time experience. You're not going back and playing it again and going like, oh, fresh experience. This is all this new thing. It's something it's like I could go back and play. A lot of my friends have been playing Mass Effect 3 recently, like the multiplayer on that, because we played the shit out of that. But I know if I go back and play it, I'm going to be like, yeah, this is kind of fun. But I wouldn't expect them to remake it, and I would enjoy it any more than I did the first time around.
Yeah. Well, the thing also is, first of all, like you're very dosed with nostalgia there, and like there is reasons that you liked it, and it was right at the right time. Like there's also when you go back to older games, like, oh my god, I remember that looking so much better than it actually does. But it's like when it comes to remakes, even more so. Like we talked about Final Fantasy, I think last week or something, where it was like, if you're gonna remake a game, like you're not gonna copy paste it, because like the idea of a remake is that you're gonna like improve like the graphics, you're gonna improve the engine that it's running on, you're gonna make it run smoother. And like if you're gonna improve all these elements, why not improve the lore and like the story as well? And I think that's exactly what it did with like the remake of Final Fantasy 7. Is like they remade it and they made it into what they thought was gonna be better. And like,
I guess you've got to be like, this is a remaster, this is a reimagining or something, as opposed to using the blanket word remake, and it's just
but it's
people.
It's like if you're talking about remaking, it's like for some people the lore or the story is really, really important. But as we see in live service games, like there is people that like really, really care about the lore in certain live service games, and there's people that really don't give a shit about it. So like. To the same degree, like some like people like might be like, oh, you can't, like if you got a remaster or something, like you can't touch everything but the lore. But there's also people that might say like, oh, you can touch everything but like the lighting or but like the models. So it's like I think that like the lore is like just another element, just like lighting, character design, and like the engine are. So like if you are saying like, oh yeah, you can just like change all of this, but you can't change the story, it's like, well, you're kind of being arbitrary here. Like you can like, why not change the story? Why can't you then change like this model? Why can't you change this? So if you're gonna say like, hey, you have creative freedom to change elements of it to like make it like remake it for like this gen console, it's like, hey, maybe allow some creative freedom. And yeah,
I think you've got a really good point there, because it's not just that, but one of the biggest drawbacks. Did either of you play like Resident Evil 2? Sorry, 1 or 2?
I think I've played 1. I haven't played the remake though. Like,
Right. So
long time ago.
I played Resident Evil 2 freaking forever ago. It was horrible, blocky graphics, fixed camera angles, weird, like pixel art canvas environments that you could and could not walk into. It was weird. And the worst thing of all was you had 3 degrees of looking: down, in front of you, and straight up. So if you wanted to try and shoot something that was above you or crawling towards you, there was nothing in between the 2 planes. It was just 2 planes. It was just you just couldn't shoot there. It was infuriating. Now with Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, like I don't know. I think they're referred to as remakes. I'm not sure.
It's semantics, though, isn't it? It's like what,
Exactly.
as I said, like what people consider a remake is. You're saying like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a game that has been remade, or with extra features or like improved features, and then some people would just be like, no, I just want the same thing, but like visually upgraded, or no, I just want the same thing, but like mechanically upgraded without the visual upgrades or whatever.
The most interesting thing is that we look at World of Warcraft.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Yeah. So no, hold on. Resident Evil 2 and 3 remaster, fantastic games. They have proper camera control, third person. You can aim wherever you want. So much more atmospheric. Actual mouths, right? I mean, Metal Gear Solid couldn't even say that. But with World of Warcraft, the people want to draw back to the original. It was more complex. It was more sophisticated, so on and so forth. So I think the interesting thing is World of Warcraft Classic did what World of Warcraft today fails to do in terms of complexity and design, that Resident Evil 2 lacked in the original, but the remaster has picked up with today's technology.
Sort of depending on the genre, though, isn't it, really? And I feel like, when it comes to WoW, they've definitely seen what people liked about Classic and are trying to bring some of it back. Like, we can talk about that later because it's not, necessarily relevant, but like, wow, we've gone really far from live service games again, haven't we? I guess.
It's fine.
What I mean is that I think that even if you were to do a live service game like Warframe or Destiny 1, brilliant example. Destiny 1, if you were to take Destiny 3 or 4 or whatever, wherever we get to, and re-envision Destiny 1 with the technology, the game design, and the learnings from the future, when it's relevant, bringing it forward, I think Destiny 1 would succeed massively, much like Final Fantasy VII Remake has. And that in itself could rekindle the existence of that game as a service.
I think specifically Destiny kind of has that thing where like people always ask for like, oh, just give me the fucking Destiny 1 raids or whatever. I think, if they wanted to make it as a game as a service, it's in a weird point right now where they obviously were under contract from Activision to produce however many titles so they could sell that many copies or whatever. And then now they've left Activision, they have a bit more autonomy over it and they want to just develop Destiny 2. I wonder if they'd be better served creating a new platform that's a lot more robust and can cope with being developed much further into the future than what they have now. Because it is, yeah, it's struggling on console at least. I mean, we'll see how that develops in the future. But like that's the same thing, I guess. It comes back to the like, how is it going to survive on current console if they want to push it further?
Yeah. I think we're looking at really interesting times. I think that looking back at like kind of in conclusion with like the live services ending on console, I think it's inevitable. I think we're gonna see it for sure happening. But it's also indicative of like they're gonna end at some point anyway. It's just that like if you're on console right now and you're not planning to move, like you're gonna find it. You're gonna find it. This is gonna happen now. If they're gonna like throw out old builds, I don't think they're gonna do it. But if they would do that, like hey, that would be amazing. I would really be happy with that. I think that'd be great. Like if I was on PS4 and I couldn't afford a PS5, and they'd be like, oh well, you don't get the newest update, but you can still continue to play on here. Like that'd be cool. But it still runs at like a cost there. And maybe they do it, maybe they don't. I think though that like we're looking at very interesting times with live services though, especially with like this console shift, and also the franchise fatigue that we talked about. I don't think I will be able to predict what's going to happen because it's a brand new thing. Like I've not seen before. This kind of like sort of game. So yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. It's going to be curious. I'm curious about it.
Cool. Should we
Cool.
see if there's any questions in chat? Should
If
we ask chat?
if anyone's in the chat, as any questions in chat, feel free to like post them right here. And otherwise, we're also close hitting the 2 hours.
Cool.
So yeah,
like a minute and a half off, something like that.
mm-hmm.
I think, just as a closing thing, like, I wonder if we'll see more games being built with the capability of, being moved over to a different generation, like as a result of seeing this, like whether in future, if there's a game as a service, they will be like, okay, we need to have like a sort of plug and play account that can kind of just take out and be put into like a future version of the game on a future platform, as opposed to, I don't know. I guess it's the same thing, isn't it? It's like are people still going to be playing the earlier platform?
Isn't Destiny doing that right now with cross save that they introduced?
I guess.
Do you actually think that like when we're moving from like console to like a next generation, do you think that like a cross save is something that would be like kind of required? So that like if I'm on PlayStation 4 with Warframe or Destiny right now and I'm gonna move to PlayStation 5, that I'm not gonna have to start over again, but I can carry over my account.
I think I think honestly like it would just even as like a consumer friendly thing, because you might find that like you hit this new console and you're like, man, I want to change. I want to like switch to I want to. My loyalties have changed. Like I used to be a PS4 player. Now I want to be an Xbox Series X player. Like my friends have all migrated over there, or the new friends I have all play over there. Like, could I technically transfer my account for Warframe from PS4 to Xbox One or Xbox Series X rather? Like, I think it's a good idea, but like whether or not, that's just down to fucking Sony and Microsoft, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's something that's kind of like should be somewhat done. Like I think that's a good thing with the cross save thing of what Destiny, that I can just like like play on every platform, just save it on my general account. I like that. So yeah, it's gonna be curious. It's gonna be like one thing which the Destiny 1 remaster that you brought up, Drew. I think like it might be an interesting idea to have like this Destiny, like this sort of like a solo offline version of live service games, which just contains like the story and the major beats within it. Like you're not gonna get real time alerts. You're not gonna be able to like play it in multiplayer or do the full time raids, but you can do like the major pieces of content. Because like one thing that's been weird with me with Destiny 2 is that like I feel Destiny 2 has already arrived at that point where there was so much content before that they said, okay, instead of like having to play for all of that, we're just gonna drop you in the tower, and you're just gonna like, you can play the first quest if you want to, but you don't have to. You can just play whatever you want. And they're kind of like sacrificing this this idea of like starting out with the main quest and like starting with the story point where it was intended to be. Like they're sacrificing that for like easy accessibility to the new content. And if you're sacrificing that, like, wouldn't it be greater if you like put it into like Destiny 2, the story game, and then like you can actually like play through all of that. So it will be like maintained into history, even when like the live service goes down.
I'm interested in that notion. I'd like to see that as an experiment, only because there are plenty of games that I can think of that would just suck if you couldn't have the cooperative experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like, this is boring, monotonous shit. How did this entertain a generation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. Anyway, that was Framecast number 42, I believe. We hit the 2 hours. Xayl, what do you do? Where can people find you?
I am
Again.
on youtube.com/Xayl, and also on Twitch occasionally, not so much at the moment, but Xayl with an E, really irritatingly. Still trying to get my name back from whoever took it, but whatever. Yeah, that's my socials. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Well.
Hmm?
You're on Twitter as well.
Yes, I am on Twitter as well. I find I'm trying. My brain is like trying to save me from Twitter at the moment, just from all the horrible politics that's just spewing around. So I think it just blocked it out for a second there. There's a brief moment of respite from the hell of the outside world. But yeah, I'm on Twitter. I think it's Xaylos. I'm fairly certain with an OS rather than anything else. Yes, thank you for confirming that for me. I'm glad that I've got you here to remind me. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you for being on. Like, I appreciate it. Also, guys, if you want to check out Xenogalion right here, go to youtube.com/Xenogalion. If you want to support him monetarily, go to patreon.com/Xenogalion. Drop him some of that money. And we will be live next week again on the same channel, twitch.tv/Misha Postma, right here, same time, same place. And we'll be live tomorrow on youtube.com/PostMaloneGames. Make sure you check it out if you haven't yet. And yeah, that will be it from me and Drew and Xayl, unless you guys got something more to add.
Nope.
No, but
all right, see you guys around next week.
Bye.
Bye.